Shout out Q. Shout out Q.
Kirby on Sports Podcast back with you. I am Josh Kirby, continuing on with our coverage of fall Shenandoah athletics. Now pleased to be joined by the head coach of Shenandoah University football team, Scott Yoder. Coach, as always, really appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure getting to talk football with you, my friend. First and foremost, how are you doing, and how was your off season in general?
First of all, thanks for having us on and promoting, college football and Shenandoah athletics. We appreciate that, and obviously we've just started up preseason, but it was a great off season. When you're in the college football world, it doesn't always feel like an off season because there's always stuff to do, and there's spring practice, and then there's summer workouts. But we're glad to be back at it and excited that our student athletes are on campus.
So you said spring practice in the weight room working, getting to camp. Do you think like easing into it with the players, it feels easier for them getting into the harder days of camp, doing the spring practices and off-season conditioning?
Well, our returning players who go through spring ball, they have the benefit of knowing exactly what August and early September look like in the program. Everything, what the practices are going to be like, what the expectations, what the standards are. The biggest, X factor for us and for everybody is those first years that you're adding that really haven't been with you. So that's the exciting part of August, and just the way we're structured with our numbers, just under a third of our team is going to be new people. So getting them acclimated quickly to our culture and to how we do things and our standards is probably the most important thing, right below practicing and getting better.
Yeah, you mentioned a third of your team, newcomers coming in. Do you sort of rely on the upperclassmen and your returners to sort of help you all out in a way in terms of a leadership role there?
100%. And it's with this being my 12th year here, we've really seen it come full circle. In the beginning, your upperclassmen didn't have as much experience with us, so it was kind of a learning experience all around. And now those seniors and juniors are a huge part of the first years getting acclimated because, we're a larger team, obviously. It's a little different if you're a different sport, but when you've got 100+ guys on the team, it can't just be one voice. It's got to be the whole staff. It's got to be the upperclassmen. And that's really the reinforcement of our culture. It's how we do things, how we go to a classroom, how we leave the dining hall, how we get ready for a meeting. And those are the things that the older guys, the upperclassmen, the seniors and juniors have always done a great job of helping us out. And that's why we've progressed as a program.
So just looking back briefly, after before the off season, just last season, briefly, just take me through as a whole what stood out to you about this season, and maybe something you're looking to carry over to sort of expand on going into this season, if you will.
Well, we had high expectations last year. Our upperclassmen had strung together a 7-3 and 8-2 season, and we ended up 5-5. And there's two facets to that. Is that there's the disappointment in the results, and our kids have created a standard here where 5-5 is not good enough. But then there's also the process and what did we do or not do that resulted in some of those games where maybe we weren't happy at the end of it. So I think you've got to separate those two things. What we are really excited about is go back to that leadership in the locker room, as I thought we had one of our best off seasons we've ever had here, and that was a direct result of the upperclassmen taking a really strong leadership role in the off-season program. And we're limited in what we can do. We're limited by NCAA rules. We're limited by facilities and time and things like that. But our upperclassmen right from the get-go, as soon as the Christmas time and the holidays were upon us, they were setting the standard of, hey, what happened in the fall is not who we are and who we want to be. And here's how we're going to progress and change that. So, there were some positives from last year for sure. I'm not going to discount those. But our guys want to play those big time games in late October and November. And that's what we want to get back to.
I know looking here, you have probably, it looks like less than 19 days away from regular season college football. It is fastly approaching, Coach. So just take me through sort of how camp has been getting back out there, just collectively as a coaching staff and your group of guys, and just what you're looking to see going ahead of camp into the regular season of college football.
Well, I try to break preseason camp into a couple sections. And to go back to something that we touched on already is the most exciting part or the most unknown is, that group of incoming guys. Now, you've recruited them, you think you know them, but until they're on campus, until they're actually going through the ins and outs of practice, you're not for sure. So that's the real exciting part. We do get a scrimmage. So we kind of look at camp as, there's a huge evaluation phase of just where we are at personnel wise. And, are we trying to do the right things with the talent that we have? Then you get an opportunity to scrimmage against another team, which is great because, there's always going to be some things that come up in that game-like atmosphere that don't present themselves in practices. So that's kind of where we are. We're probably about a week away from a scrimmage. We're relatively healthy. We're doing a ton of evaluation right now with our offense and defense and special teams and our personnel. But I like where we're at. We've got a lot of key returners back. And I think some young guys or maybe some guys that aren't household names for your diehard Shenandoah fans. We've got some guys who are popping right now, just making consistently good plays and turning heads on in film. And so I hope that continues. So I'm really pleased with where we are right now. It's certainly a long way to go. You say 19 days, it's right around the corner. At the same time, we got a lot to do. So we're still kind of being formed into who we're going to be this year.
So you mentioned evaluation and looking at the players coming in as well as your returners. Do you think the evaluation process helps as a coaching staff, being that you've been around these core group of coaches for quite some time? Coach Calvin Oliver has led the defense for plenty of years. What have you. Looks like the coaching staff seems to be the same. That must help you all out a lot.
It really does for so many different levels of the program. Just, working together and understanding how everybody communicates and how we're going to get better as a group. You hit on evaluation. You're out there recruiting and hey, there's a kid in my area that's pretty good, and this is where we think he might fit for us. Even if he's playing on defense or offense or special teams, the attitude of our guys and what the culture we want to continue at our team. So that staff continuity has been huge for us. We get Coach Brock back. Coach Brock was at SU for a long time, and he took a couple years away from the college game, and now he's back with us, and he's going to work closely with Coach Oliver, and they've worked closely together. Coach Hodgen's been with us for 12 years. Hayden played for us, so we got a great group, and that really helps in the coaching, the evaluation, and hopefully the execution of a high-level game plan.
So take me through at a college level, when you go into a scrimmage, what are you most looking at in terms of when the scrimmage comes? Because obviously it's Still, I would imagine practice, but you're facing off against another team in a game like scenario. Just take me through what you really try to look out for in a scrimmage.
Well, I think that's a great question, and I'm sure a lot of schools handle it different ways. We've typically treated it like a game, played it with officials, played 4 quarters, coaches on the sideline, substitutions, exactly like a game. Obviously, the results, they're not, doesn't matter, in the big scheme of things. But we've always kind of looked at it like the first half is an evaluation of what we think our first and second teamers are going to be. Okay. Now, obviously, there's some wiggle room in there. Um, when Hayden was slinging it around for us as a senior, he probably didn't play the whole first half of his scrimmage. So every position's going to be a little different. But I want to know at the end of the scrimmage, our first half should be like a legit game for us as far as who's playing, what our base concepts we're trying to execute. And I think that's a huge microscope for us to look at of kind of where we are. Okay. Sprinkled into that is let's get some guys in that first half who we think have the ability to help us, but maybe we don't have enough data on. A freshman really pops for us, and he's playing really well. Let's get him out there, when the lights are on and, now, there's, it's not practice, that's another team over there. And let's see how they handle that. So that's a huge piece. The second half, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And now it's really an evaluation of talent, and a developmental part of our program of guys who maybe not get as many reps in practice when it's offense versus defense because there's time limitations, but get those guys out there because somebody's going to pop there. We're still doing special teams. Somebody's going to show you something that maybe you didn't get to see or reinforce what you think you already know. And that's the great part of it, and it really is, whatever your kind of, home base is as far as what you're thinking is, it's a dress rehearsal. We make a major mistake, we have time to fix it. It's huge for the staff because of communication, where guys are on the field versus in the press box, how we're handling calling plays and signaling or, just substitutions. Hey, we like this, we didn't like that. So as much as our staff's been together, coming off of a scrimmage, we're going to know a ton and know what we need to attack for that first game week.
Absolutely. Coach, I briefly just want to touch on your upcoming schedule for Shenandoah Hornets football. It was announced this past offseason, a football season crossover scheduling with the Southern Athletic Association, and the Hornets will be facing off against Rhodes College from the Southern Athletic Association. Just your thoughts on a scheduling agreement crossover like that, facing a team that you and the staff might not be too familiar with, if you will.
I think that's a great point. We open the season, we go to Methodist in Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's an opponent that we are comfortable with in just the sense that we played each other a lot. So our guys are we're going to know the atmosphere down there. And then we get a week 3 home game. Rhodes comes to us. I think this is a cool agreement. Both conferences were kind of in need of a game, and it worked out. We're excited because Rhodes, which is a high quality institution, traditionally might not have the huge success on the football field that maybe they want, but they've been really good as of late. So their staff and their coaches are doing a great job. They were really good last year, and they bring back pretty much everybody. So we're expecting a really talented football team to come to Winchester on that September 21st weekend. And I think it's going to be a great game. It's a night game at home. Chantel, that's always exciting. I think it's for our guys too. It's that experience of playing somebody different. The way Division III football has evolved, there's some postseason opportunities, whether it be in bowl games or NCAA playoffs. And we're going to set that game week up with, hey, this is going to be very much like postseason football. You're playing a high quality team that you don't know a lot about. You know, all these other teams we've been playing for forever, and we kind of know, we know them really well. And here's a team that we don't. So I think that's going to be exciting.
The way the schedule is laid out, you only have 3 out of conference opponents, and then the rest of the way is ODAC opponents, rivals that you face every year. Do you like the way the schedule is with the back half all ODAC opponents? Just your thoughts from that aspect.
I've always liked that. I've always liked non-conference in the beginning, and then let's go through the conference slate. Last year we had a week 2 bye. We have a week 2 bye this year. I didn't handle that as well as I wanted to as a head coach. So that's kind of been a point of emphasis, because it's very typically after your first game and you're playing week 2, there's a lot of good improvement because you've scrimmaged, you played game 1, and it's very awkward to have a week 2 bye. And I didn't do a good enough job coaching that with our team. And I think that played into, you know, we stumbled against Maryville, and they were a high quality opponent, but we should have been in a better situation. So I've taken that on myself and our staff to, hey, let's get our guys ready and let's handle this a little bit better. I do really like the setup, though, of you play your non-conference, then you get in the conference season.
Coach, last but not least, you said you've been with the Hornets for 12 years. A lot of football games, Coach. You're well known around the Winchester area. Just my question to you is, how have you seen the game of football evolve from the time you started with Shenandoah up until this point? I know that might be a loaded question, but I'm just curious.
Well, I think it's a really interesting question. You probably could do a whole podcast on it. Maybe you already have. I would say of the people on this podcast, I'm the second most popular in Winchester. I'm just going to put that out there. The game has changed a lot. Okay. You know, you think about what has happened, just not just with Division III football, but on the national level, of just how the game is officiated, how it's played, the rule changes that have really all been about player safety. And we could probably go into depth on, you know, maybe some rules have been more effective than others, but there has definitely been you know, just a change in how we've got to coach, approach the game. The nice thing is, you know, maybe where 5-10 years ago, it was a huge change for our players. Now our young players, you know, they got this in high school. You know, I mean, I remember the days where highlight videos were just big hit after big hit and guys getting decleated, and you don't see that as much anymore. And this is a tremendously physical game. You know, no one's gonna, it's a violent game. And anybody who knows it understands that. And I don't think we can ever make football 100% safe. But honestly, what is safe? You know, crossing the street is not safe, you know, just day to day. So we've made it safer. There's no doubt about it. Technology, helmets, equipment, the way we're officiating, the way our kids are playing. And I think that's a really good thing for a lot of reasons. But the game is still about some great things that will never change unless we just lose our way as a society and as a nation, which is, it's a tough game. Okay. You cannot be halfway in to play football at any level. You've got to be all in. And there's going to be some really tough days. And there's going to be some days where, you know, you think, hey, maybe it would be better if I did something else. But it's one of the few things that's really hard that's left in our society. And I think it's really important. And I don't just mean college football. I think high school football has a tremendous place in society and for young people, especially young men who need some guidance, who need to be a part of something to kind of find out who they are, but also help them through, high school is not an easy time for anybody. So, you probably didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I took you. But I think the game is in great shape. I'm not real thrilled about what's going on with NIL and, paying people and these super conferences. And I think there's a lot of damage that we're doing at those big levels. But we let the cat out of the bag. And I know there's going to be more changes and we'll advocate for our players, but, I think we've kind of destroyed what we know of college football, at that level, at least.
So, Coach, in closing, with the season fastly approaching, if you could maybe share one or two sentiments, things that really stand out to you. I know you're the head coach, you're on the sideline, but if somebody who's listening to this podcast is like, hey, I might want to come out to a Shenandoah Hornets football game, what are one or two points in your mind that can convince them to come on out and see the Hornets play?
I would say two things that I would want to just highlight. And one is, this is not just my 12th year at SU, but it's my 12th year in Winchester. As some people might know, my family's here. Obviously, I got 3 boys here. As they've kind of grown up and as our family's gotten more comfortable and gotten really entrenched in the area, Winchester is such a great community. And whether it's Apple Blossom, whether it's going to a big time high school event, and my life's revolved around sports, but there's so many community events at Winchester, and you go and you see all these people and it's great. My kids always say Apple Blossom's better than Christmas because they get to see all their friends for multiple days. And I really think that's true. And I think an SU game is very much like that, like those events in Winchester that, hey, if you're looking for something to do on a Saturday night in September, come on over to the game. It's probably going to be great weather. You're probably going to see a really fun product on the field. You're probably going to see a lot of people in the community that maybe you don't get to connect with on a daily basis. There's certainly that social aspect about it. So definitely just, I think any SU event, a basketball game, a soccer game, whatever, a baseball game, they're great events to go to. So we certainly love to have that support, and our players loves playing in front of big crowds, which we're lucky to have. And the other thing is, I'm really fortunate because I've been here long enough now that a lot of our players are now out far enough from college. They've got careers, they've got families. And I always knew this, but I didn't know how much it would make me feel good as about just seeing our players and SU alums come back for a game, come back for alumni weekend. We had a young man who played for us visit with us last night. He brought his son. It's awesome. I mean, you see these guys that you coached and you've been a part of their lives, and they go out and they flourish, and maybe you don't get to see them as much, and they come back, and that's been really cool for our program. And I'm just really proud of those guys, and it makes me feel good because it's obviously not just about football.
Shenandoah Hornets football just a couple weeks away. It's just that time of year, football season, fall weather, that crisp fall weather atmosphere. I can't wait. I'm sure you can either, Coach. And as always, the head coach of the Shenandoah Hornets, Scott Yoder, right here on the Kirby on Sports podcast. For more information, this Hornets schedule is out. You can go on to suhornets.com, and all their games are listed to check out a game if you want to check out at home. But Coach, as always, really appreciate talking football with you. Really appreciate your time and really looking forward to our next visit.
Hey, thanks for everything you do. Good seeing you. Have a great fall.